What's your hex price predictions? Like I've kind of shared some of my thoughts on your show before, but what do you think? Like how do you think about price predictions with hex specifically?
So I was talking about this on the stream. I'm very I think what I could see happening during the bull market. So originally I said Pulse is going to outperform. It's going to be the best performer because it's new, but it's not really quite new. And I explained this in my Twitter. I don't know if you want to go deep into that, but it's not quite new
Sure.
in the sense that people think it's new because, I mean, what makes something what makes these new things go up and go up really fast and really high really quickly? I'm saying it's the fact that there's less people in there. Everyone that got in is not sitting on much profits. They have high expectations, right? There's nobody getting in ahead of you. I mean, there's less people getting in ahead of you, right? So when you jump into Apple stock, like how many people are already holding that are on 10x's, 20x's, 100x's, that the next 2x, they're 20x, they're 100x now 200x. I mean, they're just so much more prone to selling. They don't have the expectations that you do. You're waiting for a lot more. Point is, you get in on day one, nobody's up. Everybody's waiting for a lot higher prices, and so it's just more upside. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
It does, but don't you? I think that argument might also apply to hex. I mean,
No.
you don't think so? We have all these hex people with now their EHEX is worth even less. Now they're placing an even greater reliance on their PX to perform, so that in their minds, the value they thought they would have, manifests itself.
No,
Like it seems like they're in a similar position.
No, so it's not conclusive, but it hasn't been happening like that, right? I mean, Hex has been performing better
Short term, but
consistently.
short term. But does the short term translate to what might happen long term? It's an open question. I'm asking.
No, so here's the thing. So think about PulseChain. It's not new in that sense because the people that got in, there was a transference of the profits from Hex to PulseChain with the sacrifice, right? They're up 1,000x on their Hex, and now they sacrifice it for PulseChain. They're still up 1,000x. Just the sell pressure is not going to be in Hex anymore. It's going to be in PulseChain. But the only thing is that PulseChain launched in the bear market, right? So PulseChain launched in the bear market, after the flush. So these people are getting their 1,000x back, right? So they have a lot less money. Their Hex bags have went down like 98%, right? But their PulseChain is at the same value it was during the sacrifice. So their 1,000x gains is there. So maybe they don't sell now, but once PulseChain doubles it, they're at a 2,000x, and then it doubles again, they're at a 4,000x, right? So they're just at every level, there's just that much more potential sell pressure.
Yeah,
when you compare it to Hex,
that argument applies to Hex, though.
No, because Hex is down 98%. It had a flush. It had a flush.
Yes.
So the people that would have gotten out got out. Right. So it's just lighter now. It's like sort of the comparison, and same thing with PulseX, probably to an even bigger extent because of more sacrificers, whatever. But I give the comparison to sort of like a hangover. There's two people. You party, you're up till 4 a.m. You wake up the next day, and you're nauseous. Some people throw up, they force themselves to vomit. Others don't. But who has a better next day? It's the ones that vomit. So sort of PulseChain hasn't really vomited, at least yet. And it's sort of holding back the gains. And same thing with PulseX. Hex vomited already. That's why it's lighter. So yeah, PulseChain and PulseX are in their first cycle, but they're not in their first cycle in the sense that Hex was in its first cycle last bull market, or in the sense that Phantom was in its first bull market, and Sandbox were in their first bull market. It's not the same thing, because a lot of the gains that result in potential sell pressure at every level are present in PulseChain and less present in Hex. So what I'm explaining is how things have been playing out. That doesn't mean in the future it's not conclusive, but I think there's a good chance that there's reason to believe it could continue like this.
Yeah, I think that there is some reason, and I appreciate you drawing the distinction of how essentially, that economic energy and the profits was transferred into PulseChain, into PulseX. But I would also argue that in the sense with HEX staking, that those profits and the economic energy to the downside that those stakes potentially have.
No, it's more to the upside, the staking, because there's less liquid. Everything in PulseChain and PulseX is liquid.
Short term, absolutely. But what I'm saying is just how the economic energy and the profits were transferred into PulseChain, into PulseX. It's the HEX staking is a similar mechanism where, yes, in the short term, absolutely makes it more liquid. It makes participants who are participating within the market active, withdrawing liquidity, absolutely. But when those HEX stakes expire, that's potential sell pressure. A lot of people kind of restake the principal and sell the interest kind of thing. There's a great deal of nuance in HEX. The HEX community is famous for loving HEX and wanting to accumulate HEX. But what I'm suggesting here is just as how the PulseChain sacrifice and the PulseX sacrifice acted as kind of a way to encapsulate your HEX profits, and when it goes live, you're susceptible to those profit takings taking place. I'm wondering if the HEX staking behavior leads to kind of a similar consequence. Maybe you're not. I'm just thinking about this out loud here for the first time. Maybe I need to flush this idea out some more. But something also that came to mind is that what I think could be another important.
No, wait. Let's just. I just want to address that point. Is that the staking makes it less liquid?
Yes,
it's more locked up.
Yeah.
So isn't that more of a reason for HEX to have more upside?
Short term, yeah. But like those just how like the sacrifice phase, you had a bunch of these profits. You sack it. There's like a 2-year wait period, and now PulseChain being live is basically like the same thing as like a HEX stake that you staked out for 2 years. Now expiring. So just how you brought up the point how people encapsulated their profits in basically the sacrifice phase, and now that PulseChain's like live, you had that potential sell pressure. I think a HEX stake acts in a similar fashion.
Yeah, but over these last like 2 years, everybody that had stakes maturing had the ability to end stake it and flush.
Yeah. And actually, another thing that kind of counteracts my point that I just thought of is I think one important thing that makes my point, I think, less powerful is that with the HEX stakes is that they're continuous. So it's not like it's just a one-time event where economic energy is delayed out into the future. It's constant. It's always happening. Where the sacrifice phase was like a one-time event where you delay economic energy into the future. So I think that. Yeah, I think that kind of counteracts my point a little bit. But just am I making any kind of sense, or am I just speaking to myself?
I mean, you're giving the argument that like HEX has the issue that there are always stakes unlocking and could sell down the price, right?
Well, just how that was kind of similar to how
I know, but
but
those sacrifices were so much bigger. It's not like comparable to a couple big stakes coming up. This was everything. This was thousands and thousands of X's of profits from tons of different individuals throughout the community given to them after they lost 98% of their money on their HEX that they had. So like. I mean, it's an issue. I mean, that's not to say that it's conclusive that HEX is going to do better. I mean, that is what we're seeing right now. I mean, what I'm saying, right. I'm observing, and I'm saying, that's like we all thought HEX and Pulse and PulseX were were the shiny new objects, they were going to do better, and that wasn't the case. So I'm stating why. Now, does that mean that in the future it's going to continue like that? That I guess the question.
Yeah, that's the interesting question, right? And I'm not even sure myself. I just find it interesting to kind of like parse this whole thing out and figure it out in real time. One thing though to consider is the psychology of new participants entering the market, where new people I think have this come in with understanding that things within its first cycle tend to outperform, so they might choose to deploy their dry powder towards the first cycle things rather than the second cycle things. Because my intuition is that I think Hex has been greatly oversold, and I understand the distinction between EX and PHEX, but it's been rather suppressed, even sentiment-wise, psychology-wise. And so when it's been sentiment-wise so suppressed for so long, I don't think it's completely unreasonable that it can outperform short term. The interesting question I think is long term. And something else to note too is that if we look at kind of Ethereum in the altcoins, what's happened historically is that Ethereum kind of leads and then the altcoins pump. So maybe what we could see is, instead of like outperformance or something, we see maybe PulseChain come the bull market, lead first, and then PulseX and then HEX, kind of because they're tokens on the main chain. Perhaps this is all speculation, right?
Yeah,
But,
I like what you're saying. That because people think new things do better, they buy the new thing, and then therefore the new thing does better. I mean, that's possible. I also said exchange listing. I think Pulse is going to be the first one, because if HEX gets listed, you send it to your wallet. You can't stake. Like, it's just, you need Pulse first, right? Like, you buy ETH, you send it to your MetaMask, you swap it for HEX. So I think it's important that Pulse is the first thing that's listed, because that allows people to buy and stake HEX and buy PulseX and use the Pulse chain. So I think that's an advantage that you see that Pulse chain has for future gains. It can maybe do better in this bull market. I think it solves the most prominent, the most prevalent issue in crypto, which is the Ethereum gas fees. That's the biggest problem. So I think there's a lot of reason to say that while HEX has been performing better, PulseChain still may perform better. And that's why I say that you have to own both. I mean, you have to own both, in my non-financial advice opinion. But the thing is that I just realized, I mean, obviously I realized it, but it has been growing on me, that I looked at my staking ladder, and I was thinking, just by buying putting a little bit of money into HEX now, relative to what I've been putting in or what I had during the bull market, I could like double, triple, quadruple the amount of T shares I have. And irrespective of the price performance against each other, the T share rate is always going up in HEX. So I mean, the point is that you can, with $1,000 staked for a couple of years, you could have like over 10 T shares, just $1,000, meaning between now and when the bull market starts in like 6-7 months from now. It hasn't started yet, guys. I'm sorry. You could get hundreds, if not thousands, of T shares, depending on your situation. And that, think of how expensive they were last bull market, and then think of the fact that they're 50% more expensive. And the price of HEX is probably going to be higher this bull market than it was last bull market. And HEX might even actually do better. So I think a lot of people that are looking at HEX and saying, I don't want it, I want PulseChain because it's the shiny new thing, or I want PulseX, I think they're really gonna kick themselves. And I think this is sort of the opportunity that we have in front of us that we just let slip away from us, because we forget about the T-share system and all the things that exist in this community. It's like with PulseChain, if you miss it, you can always tell yourself, I'll wait for things to settle down, and then I could accumulate a lot. But with HEX, earlier pays better. So yeah, aside from the dip, you're going against 25% increase. It's already 28,000 HEX per T share. It's going to be probably over 40,000 within 2-3 years. So even if there's another 90% correction, the price is going to be higher than it is now. The T-share rate, you'll never, it's unsalvageable. So I'm really trying to shift the emphasis on buying and staking HEX. That's really going to be my focus over the next couple of months. I want to be one of those people that has, you know, a lot of T-shares, that perpetual passive income. And now's the opportunity. It's never going to be the same.